from round one. We have Kevin Sames on the right playing Simic Merfolk, and on the left we have someone on our leaderboard, number 7, already qualified for the Energy Championship by winning a showdown earlier this year. It's May French piloting her take on Mono Green Devotion. Devin joins me here in the booth, and he is going to tell us a little bit about the Merfolk Mono Green matchup as a Merfolk master in Doom Wake.
I wouldn't necessarily use the word master. I mean, I've played a little bit of both of these decks. This is going to be an interesting matchup. It's going to be a lot of 2 ships passing in the night. As you would maybe expect from creature deck versus deck that is trying to put a bunch of stuff onto the battlefield like Mono Green Devotion. There are some key points of interaction here, though. We noted when we saw Kevin earlier today, Kevin has a couple of copies of Kitesail Larcenist, and honestly, the 4 copies of Tishana's Tidebinder I think are going to go a long way here, because you can stifle Cavalier ETB triggers, you can stifle either maybe a Kiora draw or maybe even an Outcast or Trailblazer enter the battlefield, make some mana. And then on top of all of that, Soul Cauldron. You see, double Leyline Nykthos. I was going to say Soul Cauldron may be good against Storm the Festival, but might not care about any of that stuff, because this is 9 mana on turn 2 potentially.
Yeah, and notably, actually, the Leyline used for its kind of domain mode there, able to use your Nykthos to make green mana, otherwise not an available play, produces an Elvish Mystic, as here comes Cenote Scout, which is going to Graveyard of an Hexmage for Kevin Sames. And yeah, May, with any mana source here, has a ton of mana to work with, but she doesn't have a second land. She does actually have the Storm the Festival in hand, has 2 mana creatures right now, but could not activate Nykthos that turn, as we go back to Kevin Sames on turn 2. So May kept maybe a little bit of a risky one. Not a lot of removal for Kevin.
Yeah, and Vidalian Hexcatcher is a card that we noted when we saw Kevin play against Pio in the last time we saw Kevin, was able to kind of stop the combo where you just made Pio pay an extra mana. Unfortunately here for Kevin, I mean, if you look at May's battlefield, she has access to 10 mana. I don't really think she's going to care too much about having to pay an extra 1 here or there for a Hexcatcher.
Yeah, I believe I agree with you as well. Mana not really the issue for May right now that she was able to untap both those mana creatures. So there is the Nykthos activation that makes 10 mana. Storm the Festival, Kiora, I believe Kiora the pickup for turn. Actually a big draw here, able to activate Nykthos again and kind of get all that started. So really big draw. Leyline was the other leftover. So I was about to say, kind of all in on the Storm of the Festivals. This Kiora draw maybe makes that not true, as we're going to see exactly how she navigates this turn. Remember, this is turn 3 for May. 1 land in play, 10 mana in pool right now. As here comes Kiora Behemoth Beckoner.
I think that's the Dom Harvey token, right? The floating mana token.
I believe that is correct.
Love to see it. Classic. Even when Dom is not on coverage with us, as we see a 3rd copy of Leyline. Thank goodness. So now our devotion count is 12, 15. Oh my goodness. I can't even count this hydrate.
That's the most green mana I've ever seen in my entire life. I can tell you that right now. There's so much green going on here with all 3, or sorry, just 3. I believe she does play the full 4 of the Leyline of the Guild Pack. We have 3 of them in play alongside Kiora, which is able to untap Nykthos, and now Bukudos of mana using a ton of it, which she is explaining, to cast Storm the Festivals. We have 10 mana left over. Now, I'm not great at math. What I can tell you is that 10 mana is enough to flash back Storm the Festivals. We get a look at that one on the screen. Top 5! Get to grab 2 permanent cards, mana value 5 or less among them. Put them on the battlefield. First one is Old Growth Troll. Second is also Old Growth Troll, which is going to add 6 more pips to the devotion count. 2 4/4s into play. Draw 2 cards thanks to Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. And we have 2 mana left over to spend, as Kevin is staring this down with his Deep Root Pilgrimage Cenote Scout board state.
Yeah,
here comes. Oh, we have another one out of hand. We drew
sure,
one,
why
obviously. Not? Here comes another Storm the Festival.
And worth noting, we kind of discussed this the last time we saw Mono Green Devotion and in the hands of Cliff Boyardee. And May is doing something very similar with the Ulvenwald Oddities. That's kind of the new kill condition here, where before he would go to Karn and set up this loop with Pestilent Cauldron and all that stuff. And, now it's pretty simple. Now you just eventually find an oddity after you're drawing a bunch of cards with Kiora triggers. And once you find the oddity, you presumably have enough mana to flip the oddity. And then just kind of just be able to attack your opponent. Now, there is a chance that I think for May, she might be at an impasse here where she may have to just stop. But to be honest with you, I don't think it matters too much during it, because she's got 50,000 power in play and 20,000 mana next turn. So I don't, I don't think
all those numbers are correct. Yeah, here we go. So we might be finally assembling a second land for May French via this Cavalier of Thorns. We have 5 mana left over exactly in pool. Yeah, we're going to use all of that to cast a Cavalier of Thorns, which is, of course, the card she found just now off the Invasion of Ixalan. She actually has another one in hand from the draws. Now we get draw from Outcaster, Trailblazer, and Kiora, and we get to go digging for more lands. Nykthos among the mix, but we have no mana to activate it, so it might be the hostile, as the card put into play instead.
Hostile is kind of a funny one where I don't know. A lot of people probably don't know what this card does, as we see May is going to go ahead and play another Land of Elves, but we can talk about this one real quick if we can get it up on the screen. So the idea here is it's a sacrifice outlet. And why is that important? So when you're going through the combo, right, you can go through a couple of Cavalier of Thorns triggers. And we mentioned there's 2 copies of the Ulvenwald Oddity. Right. But the issue is if you end up milling over both oddities with Cavaliers, then you theoretically can't kill your opponent in one shot. What Hostile does is you can Hostile to sacrifice the Cavalier, put the oddity back on top, and then flashback Storm to guarantee that you can hit the oddity off the Storm.
Okay, so a little bit of graveyard recursion baked into your land, and of course it does flip to become creeping in if that's something that ever becomes relevant, which I highly doubt it does. But here, again, these Leyline of the Guildpacks actually allowing her to tap for green, deploy another Land of Realms that was drawn, and develop her board state even further. She has this massive board state facing down Kevin Sames, who deploys the Kumena. So we actually do have a little bit of something going here. Kumena, Tyrant of Orzaka, alongside the Deeproot Pilgrimage, does start to assemble a good series of chump blockers in the form of these 1/1 tokens that you can generate. Now, the problem is the Ulvenwald Oddity, like you mentioned, does give everything trample. As you get a look at Kumena here, all these tap abilities allow you, alongside Deeproot Pilgrimage, to one at a time generate tokens and then use those tokens to continue to activate Kumena's abilities. So a lot of power in that in most matchups, but looking a little bit underpowered facing down what May is doing as she's counting the amount of mana she has. And yeah, I mean, new record of Mono Green Devotion mana, I'm sure, as she is now. We've resorted to pen and paper. We can't see it on screen. I'm not doing the math.
Too many dice.
It's north of 20. Oh, never mind. She's helping us out. Here we go. Okay. Thank you, May.
You got the dice. Yeah, we see, May just kind of, we're gonna go through the motions here. I cannot imagine Kevin's gonna get out of this turn because I think she still has 2 storms in the graveyard to flashback, and presumably
she got one
of those,
in hand.
one of those
untap Nykthos. I mean,
she'll eventually find the oddity. Even in that scenario that I was talking about, I guess hypothetically, if she goes through too many calves, maybe mills over both oddities because now that Hostile is tapped. So maybe that's the one way that Kevin doesn't die this turn, but even if that were the case, is there even any chance of Kevin trying to kill May on the following turn? Probably not.
From 19 feels ambitious, as we do not find off of the Cavalier any of the oddities. Yeah, those basics are horrific. And
horrific is not the word that I would use to describe them, but
we're cut from different cloths, Devin. We're built different, as they say. As here comes another copy of Storm the Festivals, which will find an oddity, and I think we might be able to just shore it up here. Yeah, here's the Ulvenwald Oddity. A rare from Innistrad Crimson Vow. Trample Haste 4/4 that when you pay 7 mana to flip it, so of course it costs traditionally 11 mana to make all that happen in one turn, you get an 8/8 with Trample and Haste. So it maintains its haste even after it flips, and it gives your other creatures +1/+1 Trample and Haste. Ulvenwald Behemoth, kind of a callback to Craterhoof Behemoth, maintaining that kind of behemoth nomenclature, and serving a similar function here, as May immediately flips that one, pushes it to the front and says, see this thing? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's do some math.
I think the math would probably work out in May's favor. But we're gonna go through cast some
other
spells here. Kevin's like, you know what? I'm good. Yeah, I think Kevin's seen enough.
Pass. I'm good.
Yeah,
I see.
I'm all set.
I understand. All right. So the one land being Nykthos, proving to be more than enough. And this is very much, kind of a return to form of the Pioneer that we know and love. Mono Green found a Nykthos, basically won the game in the spot. There's obviously some stuff that happened in between, but we haven't really seen that since Karn's banning. As we take a look at what Kevin Sames can even do about all this that he just saw in game number 1 with his Simic Merfolk deck. So we've seen Kevin's list before, as he did win round number 1 against Peo on camera. And now here we are again facing down another leaderboard hitter in the form of May French. We have the 4 copies of Leyline of Sanctity, 2 Pick Your Poison, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, 2 Merfolk Trickster, 1 Heroic Intervention, 1 Lost in the Maze, 1 Kopla, Warden of Waves, 1 Kitesale Larcenist, and a Mystical Dispute. How are we adjusting for Mono Green?
There's probably not a ton here. We talked about the interaction with the Kitesale Larcenist being pretty good because you can maybe shut down an early creature, but I mean, is that even necessarily good enough? Maybe you could go to. I gotta read. I would be honest with you, Drake. I gotta read Lost in the Maze again. So let me pull this one up real quick.
Okay.
When it enters the battlefield, tap X target creatures, put a stun counter on each of them, and tap creatures you control of hexproof. So I guess maybe you could do it as like 4 mana stun 2 of your elves for a turn. I don't know if that's where you want to go towards, but pick your poison. I guess you could go towards to kill the Leyline of the Guild Pact if that's something that if May has another one of those draws. But I'm going to be honest with you, Drake. There's not really a ton here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Mono Green Devotion, not really too much of a presence coming into this event. A lot of eyes on the Vampires decks and the Izzet Phoenix decks, so not that much preparation. I do agree with you. I think Lost in the Maze just getting some blockers down, as it is, kind of hard to get your Merfolk through some of these 5/6s and 4/4s that Mono Green can present. A good option, and pick your poison maybe for ley lines and things of that ilk. May French on her Mono Green Devotion deck was probably similarly unprepared for the Simic Merfolk matchup, but let's take a look anyway and see what she has to work with. So, May French has 4 copies of Tail Swipe, 3 copies of Pick Your Poison, 2 copies of Obstinate Baloth, 2 Stone Rain, 1 Arasta of the Endless Web, 1 Cityscape Leveler, 1 Emrakul the Promised End, and 1 Unlicensed Hearse. How are we adjusting for the little fishes?
So the tail swipes seem pretty good. Their early interaction against the specific like surgical pieces, like you really want to be able to kill the Hex Catcher or potentially the Kumena. So very good at killing those specific cards. Maybe May did see a copy of Deep Root Pilgrimage, so she might want to go towards something like Pick Your Poison to help fight over that. Maybe she, has information that we know Kevin also has copies of Smuggler's Copter and Agatha's Soul Cauldron, so she might want to go towards that. Past those, probably not a ton else. I mean, I guess Baloth to gain some life and block, but it's kind of slow. And yeah, I think probably just the Pick Your Poisons and the Tail Swipes.
Well, that looks good to me. I mean, the Tail Swipe's actually a pretty good option. Good against the creature decks for May French. These players are shuffling up for game number 2. Of course, Kevin Sames going to be on the play this time, and hoping maybe for not a repeat performance as Kevin Sames, as that was a lot of mana on turn 3 from May French. Even having only one land, no access to spreading seas and things of that nature like you have in Modern, means that the Merfolk matchup against some of these very powerful non-basic lands looks quite a bit different as these players are looking at opening hands, reaching for mulligans. I want to shout out as we are shuffling up and taking a look at the sleeves these players are working with. Shout out to Ultimate Guard, which is the official sponsor of the NRG series. You're looking to pick up some awesome katana sleeves. Very hard to find on shelves. I buy them wherever I can find them. Very hard to find them on shelves. Big fan of the katana sleeves. And of course, our top 16 is actually going to get katana sleeves. Everybody that makes top 16 gets some katana sleeves as part of their prizes for their performance. And of course, in collaboration with Ultimate Guard. And our entire top 8 going to get some Boulder deck boxes as well. So Ultimate Guard, in addition to sponsoring this, of course, helping the players out too, giving them some extra sweet swag to work with, some nice sleeves to work with as well. Tournaments can take a toll on the sleeves that you're working with, and katanas hold up the best.
Let's take a look and see. I don't see the double leyline start again, Drake. So we might not have nearly as much mana as we had game 1, but May's hand still looks fairly reasonable. I see an elf. I saw, a Nykthos, a Sunken Citadel, an Old Growth Troll. So pretty fine hand for May, but not, the stone cold nuts as we saw last game.
Yeah, the stone cold nuts. It's funny saying that as she kept a one-lander, but I mean, it's certainly what it looked like as we saw how that progressed. And yeah, just no play on turn 1 for Kevin Sames. Again, not a lot of those, as May does play Forest into Elvish Mystic. We're passing on back, and we'll see what Kevin has dialed up for 2. So we've seen a few different looks from this Merfolk deck. We've seen some aggressive draws, and then we've seen draws kind of like this with Kiora's Follower that looks to be kind of signaling to try to assemble more of the Kiora's Follower, Deep Root Pilgrimage combo stuff instead of just getting aggressive out the gate.
Yeah, maybe turn 3, Kevin, Kevin does have access to 4 mana. What's cool about the Kiora's Follower in this deck, and one thing that I didn't mention earlier, is it is a combo piece. Like if you have 2 Kiora's Followers plus Deep Root Pilgrimage, that's, infinite 1/1 tokens. But what's also cool about the followers in this deck is you are a deck with 4 Collected Companies. So it as a 2-drop just allows you to ramp into that turn 3 Coco. So, and that maybe is one of Kevin's best path to victories, where, you want to hold up the Coco on 3 the turn that May is going for a potential Cavalier of Thorns.
Right. And even doing something like Tidebind, like finding a Tidebinder to kind of stifle the Cavalier, remove any kind of reach or anything like that might matter. And of course, the death trigger as well. There's some play to it as well. If Coco is what you have, we've seen some of these creatures that kind of double as spells matter for that. As here is a Llanowar Elves and a Sunken Citadel, almost certainly naming green. Cavern of Souls the draw for Kevin, so that does guarantee 4 mana. I see a lot of spells in Kevin's hand. We'll see where he wants to start as he plays Cavern, naming Merfolk.
Could also potentially go for second follower plus pilgrimage. That would give you the infinite tokens next turn. Now, there is like a legitimate question of, well, I guess May would care about infinite tokens because she is, the way that her deck is set up is she's trying to assemble, a finite amount of damage. Even if she literally goes through her entire deck and puts, both copies of Ulvenwald Oddity and every single creature in her deck into play, it doesn't really beat infinite toughness. So,
Right.
if Kevin was able to assemble that, that would be a reasonable path to victory.
Yeah, I mean, just the combo, I don't think May has any path forward from what we saw through infinite creature tokens. I don't know that there's a single way to win, no matter what series of cards you draw. Here is Collected Company. Unclear if Old Growth Troll is on the stack or not, if we're just doing this on Instep. Didn't really get a great look at that, but May did develop an Old Growth Troll, which is going to start to make Nick those considerations, as we see one of those in her hand start to look very, very powerful. And options for Kevin as he's looking at this Collected Company.
Yeah, it was 2 Deeproot Elites and a flip card. The flip card, what flip cards does Kevin have?
Glasspool Mimic, I believe, is the one that you'll be looking at there as an option. So that one's kind of a clone effect, which will give you the second Kiora's follower. So we can go ahead and take a look at Deeproot Elite, which is going to see the other Merfolk enter under your control. So whenever Merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put a counter on target Merfolk that you control. So works with Merfolk and targets Merfolk, and is going to see this Glasspool Mimic enter. And that was likely going to enter as a copy of Kiora's follower, which is going to give you, let you be primed and ready for a Deeproot Elite to come off the top and combo with infinite creatures, as it is a clone, which you are looking at right now on screen. Also doubles as a tap land.
One thing that I'm now realizing with, if Kevin does set up the infinite creature tokens next turn, not only do you get infinite power with the Deeproot Elite, because a Merfolk entering the battlefield pumps the elite, so you have an infinitely large Deeproot Elite. Also, if you have a Kumena, you can actually draw your whole deck, because infinite tokens means that you can activate Kumena in whatever number of times. Now, I don't know if there's a kill if Kevin draws his entire deck next turn, because May can just chump block the Deeproot Elite, but something to keep in mind.
I think we do have a kill, right? Because we can actually make all 3 of our Kiora's followers and stuff infinites, right? We can make all of those unboundedly large, and there's only 2 blockers. So what we do is we execute the combo, make all of those creatures insanely big, and then make sure that the Kiora's followers end up untapped. And then we have enough, right? Because we have Deeproot Elite and 2 Kiora's followers. Wait, no, because one of them still has to start tapped. So your end state of the combo is 1 tapped Kiora's follower to kick things off. So actually, you're right. You still can double block.
You would need 5 mana, right? 5 mana, 3 for the Kumena, 2 for the pilgrimage. Yeah.
But if you do find a Kumena or whatever, that does change everything. But we're all talking about hypotheticals. Right now, the focus for Kevin Sames is find Deeproot Pilgrimage. As I believe we are, it looks like we're asking, unclear what we're doing here. Both players kind of in a wait state. I assume there's either a judge call or we're fetching something at the moment. Kevin's camera is acting up. Okay, so the camera is zooming in and out. We're having some issues with the Kevin's camera, so we're actually having a little bit of a technical break here as the players both tapped out. Not really any actions to even think about. Kevin and May's hand both face down on the table, not even posturing to be thinking about anything. So, I mean, pretty straightforward. Like we said, if Deeproot Pilgrimage is involved, Kevin starts to look to be a heavy favorite. Otherwise, let's talk about May and her development. I saw Nykthos in her hand. I saw a layer of the Hydra in her hand as well. So it looks like we might be a little bit of flooding going on. There's also a judge call going on about the triggers is actually what's being handled here, as well as we're doing a technical break. So I heard this. We're trying to fix the camera. We're also asking about the triggers. And I believe they will see each other after. Yeah, we're fixing everything. And everything is now fixed. Glasspool Mimic in hand. I see Tidebinder in hand. Is there a Deeproot Pilgrimage?
Well, yeah, we'll have to see. Does Kevin have that blue enchantment? Because if so, we are going to be able to make infinite Merfolk creature tokens. And as we talked about with May's deck list, I'm going to look at her deck list again, and I don't really know if there's really a way to. I mean, even like, does Emrakul the Promised End, if that's a card that she boarded in, does that even beat infinite tokens? Because you can only send so many of those tokens in. And if Kevin makes, 5 billion of them, I assume that there's probably still going to be lethal next turn. As we see a Kitesail Larcenist cast here, that is going to likely turn the troll into a treasure. Now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Drake, but I believe that troll still has devotion, right?
It loses all of their abilities. I don't know that its command cost is kind of a feature of the card, a card attribute. It is not an ability. So I believe you're
And
correct.
May's probably going to ask.
Yeah, it still presents 3 devotion. However, it won't get the dice trigger. So if you sacrifice it for mana, it's not going to like do the old girl troll thing where it sees itself die and becomes this enchant forest. As we get a look at Cartsail Larcenist, as these judges very likely ask the same question you are. So there you go. The non-merfolk creature in Kevin Same's list. We have 2 copies of Cartsail Larcenist in the main deck, actually a third in the sideboard as well. 2/3 flying, ward 1 human pirate. When it enters the battlefield, for each player, choose up to one other target artifact or creature that player controls, and then for as long as it remains in the battlefield, the chosen permanents become treasure artifacts. With tap, sacrifice this artifact, make a mana of any color, and loses all other abilities. So now Old Girl Troll is a treasure. We do not get a counter from Deeper Delete, but we can start to crash in and attack, which I think is what we're doing here.
Yep, looks like no pilgrimage here for Kevin, but maybe no pilgrimage necessary. We're just going beatdown mode. This is a very relatively large attack here for 6 damage. Going to put May down to 14 life, and Kevin still has the Mutavault in play with a bunch of just a bunch of power, and just going to really try and see if we can close the finish line before May. Like you said, May does have a Nykthos in hand, so she's got her mana lined up, but do we have a payoff is the question.
Right, and that's exactly the equation right now. And Kevin kind of presenting this multifaceted attack too. This is what we talked about, and one of the more impressive things going on with this Merfolk deck is not only are we kind of presenting a reasonable attack force here. I think this is currently looking to be about 3 attacks to lethal for Kevin as it stands. Now that can change with lords and things of that nature, but also we still have the 2 Kiora's followers dialed up, which means if we ever draw the Deeper Pilgrimage from this point forward, things basically end on the spot, like we talked about. We did a lot of conversation around, can May get out of this? Well, not really. If so, it's going to be really hard to do. And so that means that Kevin is not only presenting like this aggressive attack strategy of, okay, what are you going to do about me just attacking you? But also, all right, now that you have the blockers, well, I can just take draw steps and maybe find Deeper Pilgrimage and then win that way. So multi kind of axes for Kevin Sames just by playing his deck as it stands. And for May, like we said, she has her mana figured out, but it doesn't really look like she has a whole lot else going on. The Old Gold Troll turned into a treasure, not really even good blocks at the moment. So she has a few problems she needs to solve. Now we'll see if she can do that. Here is Nykthos immediately getting activated. That's 5 green mana. Here's a 6. Do we have Storm the Festival? We do.
All right, start the party. It's likely not going to come up this game, but I shut up the Twitch chat because they did come up with a line where say, okay, so if Kevin makes infinite tokens, if May did board in the Emrakul, she can Emrakul Kevin, and then if Kevin also has access to Kumena, she can force Kevin to draw his whole deck.
Okay, so she could deck it, but that would require, because it does an infinite draw face up. Like if we just draw Deeper Pilgrimage right now, then that's infinite tokens, no Kumena. Yeah. So he would need the Kumena too. She would need to fight Emrakul, and he would need to have Kumena in order to
likely really not going to happen.
So that's a tough spot.
But if it did, we'd have a really good moment,
Sure, yeah, that'd be sweet. Well, what we do have is Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner, and a Cavalier of Thorns, both coming in off of this Storm the Festivals. Land has been played for turn, and so Forest is found off of the Cavalier trigger. We did draw a card from Kiora. This allows us to untap Nykthos, thanks to Kiora, and back into the lab we go, making a pile of green mana that to me looks sufficient to flashback Storm the Festival if that's the direction we want to go. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah.
And there's that 1 mana. So that's going to be Storm the Festival. But you see, okay, so if she does that, we have 2 mana left over. Looks like we're going to cast something first.
Yeah, we might be able to get a little bit of free equity with the Nykthos.
Right, yeah, because she's going to get to a point where maybe she runs out of mana. Like even if she hits a copy of a Cavalier of Thorns off of the Storm, I guess it would have to be like Cavalier and Kiora. Kiora untap the Citadel, Cav hit Nykthos, or vice versa. Because you're going to be in a spot where you can Storm, but I think she might be tapped out after the Storm.
Yeah, that looks to be the case right now. I mean, you need to find something like Nykthos and, some more mana additionally. So, yeah, I mean, it looks basically like we're more or less out of gas, and this did not look like a good hit to me off Storm the Festival. Like ley lines and stuff, and all lands in hand for May right now. Do we even have a creature with power 4 or greater to start drawing cards?
I don't think so. I think it's Elf, Leyline, Castle, Storm. Not a very good one.
I mean, this is, I think, a verified brick as double leyline added, mana situation figured out. But really, the only blocking force we have assembled here is this Outcaster Trailblazer and the Cavalier. Now, the Cavalier is very strong. It's going to do a good job blocking against what Kevin is presenting right now, but not really able to put pressure on Kevin's life total yet is May French, and more or less out of gas. She needs to now find something off the top to really keep things going, which when you're talking about somebody that just played Ed Flashback Storm the Festivals, that's a surprising state to be in.
Yeah, and big question for Kevin here. We've been talking about this the whole game. Will Kevin find that Deeproot Pilgrimage? Because we presume if we do find the Pilgrimage, that's infinite tokens, and pretty fairly confident that May does not have, may or may not have a way out of that. So, does Kevin find the Pilgrimage? Even something like a Kumena could help the board grow a little bit bigger. You could also draw cards and try to draw into the Deeproot Pilgrimage.
Right.
Really wants to find one of those. But yeah, with that Cavalier on defense, doesn't really have a lot of good attacks. And there's the Kumena. So that can dig a little deeper and try to find that Pilgrimage if he doesn't already have it.
And we also get a trigger from the Deeproot Elite. Okay, so we can start growing some Merfolk. Yeah, we're going to get a read on Kumena, Tyrant of Orzaka, and that is a powerful one on this board state, especially, if things start to look like we're not going to be able to attack anymore, we can start get some card draw going. We can just grow our board state to maybe start to power through. We have a lot of options, does Kevin seems, as we're going to put a counter on the Kumena from the trigger from himself entering, which does work. When you play this Merfolk, you can put it on another target Merfolk, which includes the one you just played. Now, Cavalier of Thorns does have reach, but and so this Kitesail Larcenist also just not really going to be able to attack. So Kevin, I mean, this board looks gummed up, but I would say Kevin's still a little bit ahead here, as he does have the ability to start drawing some cards off of Kumena and try to find that Deeproot Pilgrimage, and that really sets things off. And here comes a Boseiju. That can go after Nykthos. Okay.
They drew after Nykthos. Now, we know, obviously Kevin doesn't know this, but we know that May does have a second copy of Nykthos, so she's probably pretty happy to see that. I guess it does cut off the amount of mana she has access to next turn, because normally you would be able to go like activate Nykthos, untap with Kiora, then ritual, kind of like do this dark ritual type effect where you play the new Nykthos, keep the new one, and make a bunch of mana that way. Now, to be honest, I don't think it matters, because mana is not really a concern given her devotion count and the Kiora, so probably not a huge deal. But will she find a big payoff? That's what we're looking for.
That looks to be a spell. Trailblazer would be great. That's worth 2 cards here off of the Kiora and the existing Trailblazer. So if that's what she drew, I mean, that's a big deal. She's reaching for mana. It's a Cavalier.
Cav, even better.
Okay, yeah. I think she reached for the wrong gold land. Okay, so we're going to start with Nykthos. Cavalier, a perfect draw for May. So she needed another piece of action. She found it. Now, can she find the oddity before Sames can find a Deeproot Pilgrimage? So that's the recipe for May. And I think at this point, May kind of understands what's up. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Deeproot Pilgrimage. I think she understands the pressure to find a kill before Sames can find Deeproot Pilgrimage. And if nothing else, I mean, it's time to just get started. Yeah, you can see him. Okay, I mean, not really a lot else we can even think about here. It's time to just get started. 2 cards and a trigger.
A lot of mana. So 2 cards. We get a lot of looks.
Storms.
Oh boy, 2 storms, the oddity. Now, I guess the one question, remember, now there is this thing where if she mills over both oddities and doesn't have access to the hostile, maybe there's a chance for Kevin where he does get that extra turn of reprieve, because, even if she can put her entire deck into play, as long as there's no oddity for Kevin, he does have an extra turn to try and find that Deeproot Pilgrimage.
Right. And, obviously that's kind of what he's hoping for now, is I believe with double Storm the Festival milled over from the Cavalier of Thorns trigger and plenty of mana left to work with for May, as these Storm the Festivals are going off, all these cards being drawn. And here comes the Cavalier trigger. I think that, there's hostile. Okay, now that's not even an out. And there's an oddity already in yard. Can we go for this right now? Is it now?
Yeah, I think she can just go hostile, sack the Cav, put the oddity on top, flashback storm, and you got to presume that's enough already. Even she could even go through a couple more storms after she puts the oddity into play. So yeah, this should basically be all she wrote at this point.
Well, this might be all May wrote indeed, as here comes another Nykthos activation. As we mentioned, we have another copy of Storm the Festivals that we can go through in order to draw some cards. Also, she just drew a ton of cards off of both of these creatures, entering the Outcaster Trailblazer, Kiora Behemoth Becketer, drawing her a ton of cards. So she has a lot of material to work with. And the question now is, just do you have enough mana? I'd say, we have to use the Kiora on tap, and it is 7 mana total to get the oddity back into hand and then, flip it, all that kind of stuff. As here goes All right, yeah. So we're gonna do the trick. Now that does exile the Cavalier. There we go. That one's in exile. Oddity on top. And now we can flash back the other Storm the Festival, like you mentioned.
She's got so much mana. She got so much mana that we have to do it on paper and not dice anymore. We don't have enough dice.
She was doing a good job helping us out. We can at least track the mana a little bit. No longer is that an option, as we actually elected to use Old Growth Troll to draw cards and draw into the Oddity, which will now enter the battlefield, draw more cards, and then theoretically we can get to flipping that. And as you said, that would be all she wrote. As May looking very good to advance to 4-0 with her take on Mono Green Devotion. The second time we've seen this Devotion deck on camera, even though it is kind of rogue for the current state of Pioneer, not as common as it once was, it's looking very, very impressive in all of its camera performances so far.
Yeah, we can just do a quick toughness check. So 2, 4, 6, 9 plus 5 is 14 toughness, and I count 2, 4, 13, 18, 24, 29, 30, 34, 39, 44. I count 48 power, I think. So I think we just have enough right now.
Well, I mean, even if we're talking about this isn't lethal, it notably wraths Kevin's board, and there's nothing you can do about that either. So, like, you know, even if we're a little short or whatever, like just having to block with everything isn't an acceptable solution here for Kevin, as May is still going. I believe she found the 4th copy of Storm of the Festivals, which finds a Elvish Mystic, and
might as well keep going, right?
Notably choosing not to put Baloth into play. I wonder if there's some decking considerations at this point.
Possibly, because those draws are not May's. Well, right. I mean, they're May Frenches, but
yeah,
you know,
they're May. Okay,
yeah,
all right, yeah.
It's
tough, real tough out here. As more elves are added to the mix, which means more power and toughness. We're going to play a new Kiora, and that's going to give us another Nykthos. And yeah, I mean, we're just in magical Christmas land over here. I mean, no red, but all green for our Christmas. His second Oddity has now been flipped, and I mean, at some point. Yeah, okay. Oh, we're gonna tail swipe too. We still have
sure.
We still have this thing too. Get that out of here. Yeah, no thank you.
Do you think she pays the ward?
I think she paid the ward. I think she's got that covered. Here comes the mush of the
This is appropriate.
Is this board state management? Crystal clear what's going on here. I love Kevin's posturing so much. It's like, yeah, all right. So let me see. Can you give me? I mean, I'm gonna block. I don't know. You know, I got some blockers here. So,
do you think Kevin's doing the math at this point?
I think Kevin is not interested in doing the math. You know, they say math is for blockers. In this particular case, I think Kevin is just like, yeah, whatever. Math is for attackers. You tell me. You tell me how much damage this is. I'm gonna move to blocks after that. Oh boy, yeah.
The best would be like actually lining up the blocks. Oh, we're gonna draw a card.
You did. Now we're drawing a card, and yeah, that's not gonna do it. So okay, May French gonna win this game, 2-0. Sorry, win this match 2-0, advancing to 4-0, doing a great job executing with Mono Green Devotion there, and some great draws. I mean, you mentioned these decks are gonna be 2 ships passing in the night. That more or less manifested. Not too much interaction between the 2 decks, but each draw step had the potential to really break open the game. And May, of course, found Cavalier of Thorns off the top right on time there in game 2 before Kevin could find his Deeproot Pilgrimage, and that is all she wrote, as you said. So with that, we're going to get May French into the booth for an interview very quickly and talk to her a little bit about, I mean, honestly, her run throughout the course of season 1. You know, this is someone that we talked about getting the job done in Modern. I believe her take on Living End in a showdown earlier this year to punch her ticket to the end of the year championship. Now still fighting here in the NRG series. Is she number 7 on our leaderboard? And with her performance so far, likely to climb even beyond that. So we're going to talk to her, not just about her season so far, about her deck choice, choosing to play mono green and stuff like that, and her journey on the NRG series. So while she is getting set up, I'm talk to you a little bit about what you're going to be looking at for the rest of the day. So this is the end of round 4. There'll be 7 rounds today, and then a cut to top 8, at which point we will have finished the last event of season 1. And at that point, the top 2 players unqualified for the end of the year championship will punch their ticket to the end of the year championship with these at-large bids. So it's the top 2. Tim Hatch, the current leader at 68 points. Of those players that are not yet qualified, not here today. So there is a host of players hungry for that spot that Tim is currently occupying. and we will see who, if any, can take those down. A lot of players at 2-1, a lot of Magic left to be played, and for basically all the players with a loss, they can't do any more losing. May not in that situation. So as she's getting set up, let's cut on down to that mouthful all out of the way. May French, congratulations.
Yeah, great game. Everyone played well.
This is so savage. Yeah, no, so I love the opener there, the one lander in game 1 that resulted in, I believe, a turn 3 kill with you basically never finding a second land until it no longer mattered.
Yeah.
I mean, mono green, what a showing.
Yeah, I mean that's like it's not the nuts, because you kind of just want like the land that the Citadel that makes 2 mana, but thankfully I did read the card Leyland for the first time and realized that it actually makes my lands tap for all colors of mana. So I didn't need to care about that. But that was great. No, like, I mean that's just like the best case scenario, and like super cool to do that.
Yeah, the top deck Kiora really set that off. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was insane.
There was we were going through game 2, and as soon as Kevin put the Glasspool Mimic on the Kiora's Follower into play, I don't know if you had the idea of him having Deeper Pilgrimage in his deck to make the infinite 1/1 tokens, and we were wondering, like, did you bring in the Emrakul thinking about the infinite tokens, because we didn't think that there was a way for you to beat like the infinite toughness, but turns out that didn't ever manifest.
No, I brought in all my tail swipes because like I could kill the creatures, but at that point it was just like I didn't have any. I had like nothing in hand. So at that point it was more of just like pray they don't have it, and they don't have it, so good enough for me pretty much. But I'm not sure. Is there a way to get rid of all the tokens? I guess you could like, I guess you can make them draw their deck with the Merfolk lore. Okay, so that's how you get rid of that. Okay. No, I did not think of that.
I mean, we were trying to figure it out for a long time. Is there even a way to beat this? But fortunately for you, that did not actually come up. It did not find the
they just need to have it, and they didn't have it. So correct. Easy.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about your run, not just this season, because of course you did punch your ticket to the Energy Championship already, sitting at number 7 on our leaderboard right now, coming into this weekend.
Actually, they forgot to update the leaderboard. I'm 4th, tied for 4th. Just want to say that for the record. I think
it's updated with the points from yesterday.
It's not.
Okay, all right. May did the math.
I have the receipts, okay? I should have 10 more points on that leaderboard.
Well, we'll talk to the production team here in the booth, and we'll have a stern talking to that. You are tied for 4th. There is no...
It's kind of my fault. I'm using a different Melee account for reasons.
Oh, okay.
So it complicates things.
So
I'm tied for 4th. I'm tied for 4th.
Just aggregate all of the May French identities, and we eventually end up tied for 4th. So talk to me a little about your run this season, and not just that, but the run at large. So I assume you here today, excellent start here at 4-0. Are you a little hungry for Player of the Year? Are we climbing up this leaderboard, coming for? I believe currently Ty is at the top with his 69 points. You coming for that? Is that part on your radar for that Player of the Year on the Energy series here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm like the favorite for it, but I don't think there's a reason I should stop playing if I keep winning, right? So, I mean, at this point, like, it's just fun to go out to the Energy events, hang out with some friends, and like play Magic and paper. And I was really excited to play Modern for the first time this weekend. Unfortunately, lost my winning in yesterday for top 8 to some player on Merfolk named Nikachu. You may have heard of him.
Never. Guy. Who?
But no, it's very fun to come to these events still, and I'm making an attempt at Player of the Year, but at the end of the day, I'm just seeing how well I can do and enjoy playing Magic. So nothing really crazy besides that.
Well, you're quite good at it, as you've shown, not just here today and your 4-0 start, but through the entire season, a monster of a season that you've had. And as you said, if you're winning so much, why stop? And great advice for players at home. Why stop while you're ahead? No reason to, as May French continues to crush. Well, all right. I mean, incredible performance. One last thing. Talk to me a little bit about Green Devotion and you choosing to bring that over, let's say, Phoenix or Vampires. Next, we've talked about kind of the faces of the format, chose to play Green Devotion instead. Can you tell me a little bit about your deck selection there?
Yeah, so I'm going to run through a couple decks I decided on and ended up not bringing. Phoenix, I'm very bad at. I'm very good at punting with Phoenix. Everyone says use Cantrip to Treasure Cruise, and sometimes I Cantrip, but I don't find Treasure Cruise, and then I lose. It's crazy. Vampires, I'm really bad at having Vein Ripper and Sorn in the same hand, so I can't bring that deck. And I decided that I wasn't going to play Blur Control again. Because there's too many Blur Control players at the NRG series, and I think we need less of them in the world. Not less people. I'm
shots
saying
fired.
we should maybe choose some different decks.
Choose some different decks.
We should be a little
I
more
love it.
creative, maybe. But Green has like a good Blur Control matchup because I respect control. You always have to respect control at these events. That's why I have the Emrakul in my sideboard. So
There you go. It's for those pesky control players we need
yeah,
less
exactly.
of.
But also like, I don't know, the vibes were good. People ask me like about like stuff like, oh, did you like what do you think about like the mana base of this? Like, why do you run like this many cards in certain decks? And I'm like, I've never touched a hypergeometric calculator in my entire life. Everything I do is based completely off vibes. People say I should map my sideboard, but my sideboard's built mostly off vibes. I kind of just cut cards if I feel like they aren't doing anything. So, yeah.
A lot of
Vibes-
mysticism
There you go.
around your process. Vibes for the
Can't
Green
argue with
Devotion. No vibes for Treasure Cruise.
Yeah.
That's not the vibe.
Yeah, the
no
vibes were
for
immaculate for
Sorens.
Mono Green this weekend, and I brought Mono Green. Simple as that.
Well, the vibes
Love
are immaculate for your performance so far. Excellent job. Any final shout outs before we let you go and get back to the vibes?
I like to shout out Robin, who may or may not be watching from home. You know who you are, Robin. I like to shout out the Mason Esports Clark, Mr. Esports. And I'd like to shout out my cat Grief, who's on the token, and definitely is named after the Magic card.
I love that. Grief after the Magic card, but cats want to cause you grief as well. A fitting name. Thank you, Meg. Congratulations on your run, and we hope to see more of you as we start to things start to shake out. We start to look towards the top cut.
All right, thank you so much.
All right. Well, with that,
That was
that
good.
is going to conclude. Yeah, I mean, a lot of vibes there. You know, a good vibes interview, good vibes deck, just vibes all around for May French and all of her Green Devotion cards. Now, like I said, with that, that's going to wrap up, I believe, round number 4 here at the Pioneer 5K Trial, the last event of season 1. So with that, we only have 3 rounds left to go. So the stakes are starting to get very, very high. And we're going to check in on all of our players to watch at the beginning of the next round, see how them and all of their records are starting to fare as things really starting to shake out and the cream's starting to rise to the top. The cream of the crop to the top for our Pioneer 5K here in St. Louis. So with that, that will conclude round number 4, and we'll see you after the break.
Hooves dig into fields of black, chase valiantly towards the dread. Shield and armor aglow and bright, countless hearts and lances keen. They ride into the night. The beasts above, they shriek and soar, spew flames of ghostlight from their jaws that eat the skies and burn the flesh, and albeit crowned with firelight, they ride on into the night. The new 2024 exclusive line, crowned with the first printed boulder and zip folio ever. An astonishing artwork made by one of Magic the Gathering's most beloved artists,